I think it is clear to believe in the power of ideas.
Fresh thinking to the Manhattan Institute.
Thank you, Arthur. I was so impressed with that introduction, I wish it had gone on for 45 minutes. Provided you didn't talk to my wife and she explained to you the many defects I bring to our relationships. Many of you in this room are, like Roberta and myself, parents of 2 or more children. And if you're parents of 2 or more children, my introductory remarks will not impress you at all. You know from your own experience that shortly after they're born, they tend to be different. One sleeps through the night, one wakes up all the time. One starts walking early, the other walks later. One sucks her thumb, the other doesn't suck her thumb. And you probably think that genes must be somehow important in how children are formed. But then you go on and make 2 mistakes. And my lecture is about the 2 mistakes. You think that the influence of genes declines as you get older, because now these children are under your benign influence and you are imparting to them your views and values. And secondly, you think that parental training, and not any other form of training, makes all the difference. Both of those statements are at least questionable and to some degree flatly wrong. So I want to explain to you why, though parents are important, they're not all important. I'm going to talk about how certain things are inherited, in particular religion and political ideology. Most people know, I think, that intelligence is inherited. I think some people realize that a tendency to commit crimes is in part the result of genetic factors. I think many people recognize that certain psychiatric illnesses have a genetic origin, but I want to talk about these deeper, more fundamental questions, religiosity and politics. Let me take a moment to explain what I mean by the word inherited. When I say something is inherited, I do not mean that scholars can go to a given individual, such as Arthur Brooks, take his DNA and point out to him what he's likely to do, who he's going to vote for, what books he's likely to write, what psychiatric illnesses he might acquire. We don't have that kind of knowledge. When we say use the word inherited, we mean that in a population of people, the population of a country, the people in this room, we can say that by the result of certain kinds of measurements, differences among people can be attributed to genetic factors. It's not an analysis we do of individuals, it's an analysis we do of groups, and we do this in one of 2 ways. We look at adopted children and observe whether the adopted children, as they grow up, display behaviors that are more like those of their biological parents, whom they essentially never do, or more like those of their adoptive parents. And when we do this, we discover that though the adoptive parents' activities seem to have an influence on the children, they are much more like their biological parents. The second way we do this is compare identical and fraternal twins. Identical twins, as you know, are genetically identical. Well, not precisely identical. They actually have different fingerprints. It makes a slight difference whether they were born within the same egg or 2 separate eggs conceived simultaneously, but they are, for all practical purposes, genetically identical. Fraternal twins are no more alike than any other pair of siblings. They share have about half their genes coming from their mother and their father. We look at a trait among identical twins and discover what the correlation is among identical twins of that trait. Let's say the tendency to commit crime, or their IQ scores, or whether their personality is extroverted or not. Then we compare that correlation among identical twins with the same correlation among fraternal twins. And when the correlation among identical twins is higher than it is among fraternal twins, we say that the only thing that can explain this difference is genetics. That is to say, the fact that the identical twins are genetically indistinguishable. This has been done, and it's been done at length. And one of the first things we've learned, though this fact has not yet penetrated the public consciousness, is that the effect of genes gets stronger the older you get. vote as a Democrat when he was 3 years old.